Hi folks, FPL General here, recording episode 20 of my 59th Minute FPL Podcast. Recording on Wednesday, the 28th of November. So Game Week 13 is behind us and Game Week 14 coming up this weekend with a Friday night deadline, so don't miss that. I had to delay the podcast this week. It's been, not only did I have my worst ever FPL game week, everything's been going wrong this week. The boiler's on the blink, so I'm not recording where I usually record, so it could be a little bit noisier. Hopefully the background noise is not too bad. It's absolutely pissing down with rain. The wind is ferocious, so hopefully you can hear me over the awful Scottish weather. Same format as usual this week. Going to start with the shout outs. So Game Week 13. Shout out to Jesse Lingard and Juan Mata, who both played 59 minutes. So a double substitution from Jose Mourinho got those two guys a shout out. And both of those players, I think, have got a couple of 1-pointers over the last few weeks now. So players to avoid in FPL, those two. I want to give a shout out to Alvaro Morata as well, who only managed 57 minutes. Another awful display, which got him back-to-back 1-pointers. So again, another player who I have got absolutely no interest in is Alvaro Morata. So to be honest, the last thing I wanted to do this week was record a podcast. It's when you have an awful game week in FPL, you really just want to forget about it for a week. But for me, I mean, with a podcast and a Twitter account, there's no hiding place for me. So I just gotta grit my teeth and get through this. So Game Week 13, as I mentioned, the worst ever FPL game week in all my years of playing the game. Somehow managed a game week rank of 5.7 million when there's 5.8 million players. So that's an achievement in itself. I wrote in my Fantasy Football Scout column last week that I was talking about captaincy options and how Game Week 13 was probably going to be unlucky for some, and obviously it turned out it was actually me who had the most bad luck in Game Week 13. So I had to eat my own words there. 29 points with a -4 got me a massive points haul of 25 points. That was my first points hit of the season. So obviously things have been going pretty badly for me this season. It's been a tough season, but had the international break and made 3 transfers. Brought in Doherty, Richarlison, and Jimenez. Was feeling really good about Game Week 13. Nice, fresh looking new team. And usually when you have a nice, fresh looking new team, it tends to be a bit of a nightmare, and that's how it panned out. So I got rid of Trippier, Barkley and Ings. So the players I got rid of didn't, at least they didn't score any points. So as I said, I was confident going into the game week, and it just was an absolute disaster. I was watching BT Sports Score, as the goals were coming in and everything else. And I just had my head down on the phone, and I heard them say Maddison got a yellow card, which is fine. You can take that. But then 5-10 minutes later, it wasn't even 3:30, and I heard them say, red card at Leicester, and I just knew it was going to be Maddison. And I mean, I kept him because I had a feeling that he would play, and I like the idea that his ownership had completely dropped down, so he was a bit of a differential for me in Game Week 13, and I had high hopes for him in that game. And the red card was just absolutely sickening. -2, that just summed up my game week. But I mean, the pain he's caused me, I'm probably going to end up just keeping him for Game Week 14. I'm a glutton for punishment. Thankfully, he served a suspension in midweek, so I'm probably going to end up holding on to him for the Game Week 14 fixture. I switched my captaincy as well. I was on Salah captain all week last week, and then I woke up Saturday morning with just a gut feeling for Aguero. I felt City would score more goals than Liverpool, which they did, and City to score 4 and Aguero not to be involved whatsoever was extremely frustrating. So Robertson and Salah were the only players who returned me anything. Just a game week to forget. Managed to double my rank from 224k to 452k. So it's pretty dark times for me in FPL. So again, just got to keep fighting and just keep plugging away. I think a cool head is needed this week. Again, the temptation is always there to rip up your team after a game week like that, but I'm actually looking at banking a transfer. After the disaster of game week 13, on paper my team looks kind of okay. For game week 14, there's nothing major that I want to do this week. So again, probably going to bank a transfer and just give the troops a chance to bounce back. Moving on now to the watch list feature. So a couple of players I've added to the watch list this week and a couple that I've removed. So first of all, the Spurs midfielders, Ali Eriksson and Son, all impressed me against Chelsea in the 3-1 win against Chelsea. So all of those are in my thoughts now. Not really this week with the North London derby coming up against Arsenal, but game week 15 I'll be bringing in at least one Spurs player, possibly even two. So Ali Eriksson and Son all interest me. Son, the rotation will probably put me off him. I can see him being rotated a lot with Lamela and Lucas Moura over the Christmas fixtures, so it'll probably be one of Ali and Eriksson that I go for if I do go for a Spurs midfielder. I was burned by Eriksson earlier in the season, so again I'm quite reluctant to go there. It was no coincidence that Eriksson got his biggest points haul of the season when Trippier wasn't on the pitch. So when Trippier comes back in, it does dent Eriksson's appeal. So all the arrows are kind of pointing towards Ali for me now as a Spurs midfielder. Goal and assist against Chelsea. Could have had a brace. He was close to getting a second goal. So I don't think I've ever owned Ali in FPL. I've always been an Eriksson man, but I am thinking about Ali from game week 15 onwards. Mitrovic was back amongst the goals again, a brace in Ranieri's first game. He's down to 6.6 million now. But it's fixtures. The fixtures are not ideal for Mitrovic. He's got 2 tough games in his next 3, and he's also on 4 yellow cards, which is obviously a bit of a worry, especially with a player like Mitrovic. He does like a yellow card, so hopefully he can get his ban out of the way before game week 17, and we can look at him then, because Fulham's fixtures do pick up from then onwards. I was impressed by Schürrle and Sessegnon as well in that Fulham win. So those are 2 guys to keep an eye on. But again, as I say, the fixtures are not ideal. It's probably just a wait and see with Fulham. They're not going to be playing Southampton every week, so it's just watch list for now for me for those guys. Man City midfielders as well. Leroy Sané is on my watch list. All the Man City midfielders are on my watch list now. And I'll talk about transfers later, but those City midfielders are in my thoughts. Aguero's my only City player, and that's been hurting me recently, so I really need to get more City players into my side. Another player who was back in game week 13 was Pascal Gross. He playing just in behind Glenn Murray, so he was an excellent option last season. He did very well for bonus points as well and things like that. So at 6.7 million, he could be a nice pickup for the busy period, and he's one who's on my watch list. I can't really see myself going for him anytime soon, and probably want to see a bit of form from him first, but he's on my watch list now following his return in game week 13. And obviously we're waiting for Gross to get his third 59th minute appearance of the season. He's on for the hat trick, so I was keeping an eye out for that at the weekend. I think he played about 80 minutes, so that will surely come in time. Players I've removed from my watch list this week: David Luiz, terrible performance against Spurs, and I'm just not interested in a double up in the Chelsea defence at the moment. I've got Alonso, happy to keep Alonso. Yes, he was quiet against Spurs, but I wouldn't read into too much. That was just one game where Chelsea were completely dominated by Spurs. So Luiz was pretty poor. Chelsea were poor defensively, so clean sheets is probably a worry there. But at least with Alonso, he always offers the attacking potential. Luiz, he's had a lot of goal attempts this season, but he's just not putting the ball in the net. And I mean, that performance from Luiz was so bad that his place could be under threat. From the likes of Christensen, maybe if Christensen has a good game in the Europa League, he'll be pushing for a start in the league. So I would be slightly worried as a David Luiz owner. Josh Murphy is another player I've removed from Cardiff. He didn't start at the weekend. He only played 23 minutes. So I was quite interested in him a couple of weeks ago, but I'm not interested anymore if there's a chance that he's not going to start games. So he's gone. Deulofeu I've removed as well. He's only played 90 minutes in one of his last 6 games. So I don't like that about Deulofeu. He always seems to get taken off early. So I do prefer Pereira at Watford if I was going to go for a Watford midfielder. So that's why Deulofeu's gone from my watch list. And Morata is gone as well. For obvious reasons. You know, he showed a bit of form a couple of weeks ago, but he's just gone off the boil again in recent weeks. And as a Hazard owner, you know, I just want to see Giroud back in that starting lineup. Hazard hasn't scored a goal while Morata's been in the team. So us Hazard owners, we need to see Giroud back in the starting lineup against Fulham, you know, to have hope of Hazard returns. So that's the watch list covered for this week. Going to move into a couple of Twitter questions now. I've noted down 4, so thanks to everyone for the questions. I'll try to get back to the others on Twitter before the deadline. First one was from Cheto Chip. He was asking, is it time to ship Hazard? He's off the boil, he's potentially injured, and he only scores when Giroud's on the pitch. So Cheto Chip is considering Hazard to Sané this week. Sarri has said today that Hazard should be available for the Fulham game, but then there's some contrast in reports that, you know, he's saying that he can't play, you know, 10 games in 30 days and sometimes he has to rest. So that's not really what we want to hear. If we own Hazard going into the busy spell, there's probably going to be games where he will be rested. But for me, it looks like, you know, he's in training today, which is Wednesday. He's probably not going to play Europa League tomorrow. So for me, all signs point to him playing against Fulham. I don't see any reason why he won't start in that game if he's training this week and he's going to get a rest in Europa League. So I'm happy to hold him for Fulham. I don't like selling him before that fixture, because it is a good fixture for him, and you know he could punish sellers in that game. So the other reason I'm reluctant to move from Hazard to a City midfielder this week is because of the City lineup in the Champions League last night. You know, all the big hitters played, so it's impossible to tell what Pep's going to do at the weekend against Bournemouth. Any one of those, you know, Sané, Sterling, Silva, even Aguero, any one of them could be in line for a rest this weekend. We just don't know with Pep. It's going to be Pep roulette at the weekend. So that is another reason why I'm happy enough probably to wait another week on the City midfielders and just hold on to Hazard. The one thing I would say about that is I don't have the cash to do Hazard straight to Sterling. But if I did, I would be very tempted to do that move. I'd be a lot more likely to make that move than the likes of a Hazard to Sané or a Hazard to Silva move this week. I think the Hazard to Sterling move, you know, it is a no-brainer. You know, Sterling is probably the most essential player in the game this season, and you know, moving early for him this week could pay off. He could get another 15-point haul against Bournemouth, and Hazard could, you know, play 60 minutes and do nothing. So it's a tough one. I wouldn't like to be in that situation this week. The Hazard to Sterling, you know, straight swap for a free transfer, because it's not an easy decision, and obviously it could go wrong if Sterling gets a rest at the weekend. So that is a tricky one. But it definitely is one I'd be very tempted to make if I was in that situation this week with cash in the bank and a free transfer. Second question was from Naldo Marquez. He's asking, you know, can we get in Son instead of Harry Kane, given Son's performance against Chelsea? Son was, you know, spectacular against Chelsea, best player on the pitch, and he played pretty advanced in that game. But talking to a few Spurs season ticket holders this week on Twitter and things like that, we can't really expect Son to play that role every week. You know, it was probably more so because of the Chelsea fixture that role suited him. You know, he terrorised the Chelsea defence, but we're more than likely going to see him probably more out on the wing more often than not. And again, I mentioned that I just don't like Son because of Lamela and Lucas Moura kicking around as well. I do see rotation for Son. And that's why I think Harry Kane is the best Spurs option, because you don't need to worry about rotation. We know at this stage he doesn't get rested. Yes, he could get a rest during the busy period, but in recent seasons we've seen that he just doesn't get a rest. He plays almost every game, and that's why he's such an attractive option. You don't need to worry about him with the captain's armband as well, because more than likely he's going to play. Compare that to the City players, the City midfielders. There's always that worry that they'll get a rest with so many options for Pep. So I don't like Son instead of Kane, Naldo. For me, it's more than likely game week 15. I'm going to do probably Aguero to Kane, and I'm probably going to avoid Son. If I get a Spurs midfielder, it's probably going to be Dele Alli, I think, at this point. But again, so much can change in the space of a week. So let's see how game week 14 goes. Let's see how the Spurs assets perform against Arsenal, and we could have different thoughts after that game. Next question was from Rodrigo Montero. Some excellent names this week with the questions. Can we trust the Wolves defence? Good question. I doubled up I got in Doherty and I've got Patricio, so I'm doubled up in defence, as a lot of people are. A lot of people were tripled up against Huddersfield, so that game was extremely painful for us Wolves, owners of Wolves defenders and goalkeepers. I am worried. I am worried about the Wolves defence. They haven't kept a clean sheet in 5 games now, and they do have Chelsea and Liverpool in their next 5. So the Wolves double up is not looking as good as it was looking. I'm quite happy to play Doherty in any fixture, even against the bigger sides, because of his attacking threat. I think he had 5 touches in the box at the weekend, which was second only to Kolasinac. I think Kolasinac had about 12. But again, Monreal's going to come back soon, so I don't really like Kolasinac as an option. But the Wolves double up in defence is something I'm not overly confident in anymore. So what I'm kind of looking at is possibly bringing in a goalkeeper to back up Patricio, who I could play when Wolves have a tough fixture. So as I said, I'm quite happy to play Doherty any given week, but I would like the option of a rotating goalkeeper, maybe someone like Fabianski, so that I wouldn't have to double up on the Wolves defence, in those Chelsea and Liverpool games. So it's, Cardiff away this weekend for Wolves. We really need them to get us a clean sheet. They owe us after the Huddersfield fixture. So I think the Huddersfield result could be a blessing in disguise for the Wolves assets. It's going to give them it was a wake up call for them. So I would expect them to bounce back against Cardiff, and I'm quite hopeful that we will see a clean sheet in that one. Cardiff have been struggling for goals recently. When you're playing a right back as a striker, it says it all about your team really in terms of goals. And I think Warnock was talking today that he's very happy. He's happy with his defence, he's happy with his midfield, but he's just he's worried about his strikers scoring goals. So I think that bodes well for Wolves this weekend. I'm hoping that they'll put in a bigger performance, and that I probably will be playing double Wolves defence again against Cardiff, Patricio and Matt Doherty. So I really hope they don't let me down again. Last question was from Lawrence Boran. He is asking, with Arnautovic's injury worries, should we do Arnautovic to Mitrovic? And I kind of covered that with Mitrovic in the watch list, that he's got tough games coming up and he's got 4 yellow cards as well. So I'm happy to hold off on Mitrovic, but I am eyeing him up in game week 17. If Arnie struggles with injury, and if his form isn't great, come game week 17, I can see myself doing the Arnie to Mitrovic switch. But again, lots can change between now and then. But I would just hold off on Mitrovic for the time being, and as long as Arnie is not ruled out for the weekend, I'm going to hold on to him. His fixtures are just too good. So hopefully we don't see too much problems with this injury that he has been having. He does seem to be made of glass this season. So Arnie is a worry, but I think you got to hold him for the time being until we see more problems with that knee. Moving into captaincy now for game week 14. It's a shootout between the City assets against Bournemouth and Hazard against Fulham. So, Salah's got the derby against Everton, so, anything can happen in the derby, so I don't really fancy captaining Salah in that one. And, I think Everton have 4 clean sheets in 7, so they have improved defensively as well, which is another reason maybe not to go for Salah this week. I just prefer City assets against Bournemouth, the way they're playing and, racking up the goals. So I'm probably going to be on Aguero captain again this week. Again, gives him a chance to pay me back for last week for his blank. I think he will start against Bournemouth. So I'm quite happy to put the captaincy on Aguero this weekend. Hazard is my other option, but again, it's this slight worry over his fitness that will probably put me off him. I'm happy enough to keep him for Fulham, but I don't really fancy captaining him when, he could get a 30-minute cameo appearance from the bench. And for that reason, I think it's important. I'm not going to vice-captain Hazard this week because, the nightmare scenario is Aguero gets a rest, Hazard misses out because of his injury, and then you're left with no captain. So I'm probably going to captain Aguero and vice-captain Salah because at least I know Salah's going to play in the derby. So that's what I'm looking at for captaincy. If you've got Sterling, I'd captain Sterling. And the likes of Silva and Sané are worth considering as well. But just be prepared for Pep Roulette. There could be some surprises in that City lineup at the weekend. Moving into my transfers and my thoughts for the next couple of weeks. Basically, I need to get more City players. I've only got Aguero, so I want to get more City midfielders. Sané, Sterling and Silva are all in my thoughts. I've even looked at possibly tripling up on the City midfield for the festive fixtures. I think there could be some value in that. So I'm more than likely going to lose Aguero next week for Kane, which will free up 3 City spots for me. So if I was to go Sané, Sterling and Silva for the festive fixtures, I'd have to lose Hazard, which probably wouldn't bother me too much given his form and fitness. But I'd also have to lose Salah, which is obviously the harder decision. He is costly, but he is delivering as well. But we were on Slack last night, the Slack channel we have for patrons, and we were talking about this triple up in the City midfield for Christmas. And I do like it. Obviously any given week one of those players may get a rest. But if you've got 3 midfielders, more than likely you're probably going to get 2 of them every week, and then you've got captaincy options there as well. And Kane and the City midfielders actually rotate pretty well for captaincy. I think right throughout the season. So you don't really need to worry about captaincy then either. You can either just go Kane or a City asset. So that's kind of where I'm at the moment. I am weighing up the possibility of going triple City midfield, which would be a big shake-up next week. I probably will bank this week, which will give me 2 free transfers going into game week 15. Possibly take a -4, maybe even a -8 to do a bit of a shake-up. Losing some of the big hitters, Aguero, Hazard, and maybe even Salah as well, to restructure and maybe go triple City midfield and Harry Kane. Another alternative to a triple Man City midfield would maybe just be a double up, and maybe look at the likes of Dele Alli. So maybe a Kane Alli double up and something like a Sané Sterling or a Sané Silva double up. So lots to think about and lots to chew on. I didn't mention Arsenal at all either. Arsenal have got a fixture swing coming up as well. The only players that really interest me are Aubameyang and Lacazette though from Arsenal. And I just prefer Harry Kane. And I can't really see myself going 2 premium strikers up front. I think that would just require too much surgery for me. And I'm not overly interested in the likes of Aubameyang or Lacazette anyway. So I'm probably going to end up avoiding Arsenal over the festive period. They just don't really have any midfielders that interest me. Ozil gets rotated. Mkhitaryan's been pretty rubbish. And apart from that, there's nothing else in that midfield really. It will be, he's getting a lot of game time, but I've got absolutely zero interest in Iwobi for FPL. So that's where I'm at. I'm looking at banking game week 14, and a big shake-up then going into game week 15 ahead of the festive period. So some big decisions to be made for me, and for a lot of managers. We've got a lot of premium assets. We've got Spurs, we've got City, we've got Arsenal. So there's a lot of options for us to look at now. So it's an exciting time in FPL. It's going to make the game a lot more interesting. It is pretty boring when there's a template and most people have the same players. So hopefully it's starting to break up now, and it's going to make things a lot more interesting over the coming weeks. So before I go, a couple of things I want to mention. First of all, I'm going away this weekend. I'm going away Thursday night, and I'm not back until Sunday night. So I'm going to probably. It's unlikely that I'm going to see any football this weekend, and part of me is kind of glad of that after game week 13. I'm just going to take a break from everything, from Twitter, from following the games and following on social media and things like that. And hopefully I'll just log into FPL on Sunday night, and the team that got me 25 points last week will hopefully have got me 75 points this week. So yeah, gonna head into London with my wife this weekend, and we're actually buying a car, so have to make a very long trip from London to Glasgow Saturday and Sunday. So breaking up the journey. So unlikely to see any football. Might catch match of the day maybe on Saturday night, but I'm not sure. The other thing I wanted to mention was the eye test podcasts. Most of you will probably have listened to them, but they're pinned on my Twitter account. So this is something I've started. I started in game week 13, 5-minute podcasts when I get to watch 90 minutes of a game. So I did one for Spurs Chelsea, and I did one for Bournemouth Arsenal game week 13. Probably not going to get to do any game week 14 because I'm away, but I will be back with more of them game week 15, game week 16, and during the festive period. So check those out and let me know what you think of them. Last point is on Patreon. So thanks to all the new patrons who've signed up since the last podcast. Anybody who's thinking about checking out my Patreon offering, don't do it until Sunday or Monday. Don't sign up until Sunday or Monday, because we're coming towards the end of the month now, and Patreon charges people on the 1st of every month. So just to avoid getting charged for November, don't sign up until Sunday or Monday. We've got a great Slack community on Twitter, a Slack community on Patreon. There's 301 people in our Slack now, so a lovely little community where we bounce ideas on a daily basis. So join us. You can join us on Slack for the festive period. Help you get through the busy fixtures. I'll put some posts about Patreon on Twitter on Sunday or Monday once we're into December. But once we are into December, you can sign up for free for the whole month of December, and you can just cancel before January 1st, and you can just check it out that way. It's basically a free trial. So any questions about that, just send me a message. Thanks for listening as always. As I say, I'm away Thursday evening, so it's going to be pretty hard for me to get back to people after today and tomorrow. So good luck in game week 14. Probably won't have time for a podcast next Tuesday with a midweek game week, so it'll probably be 2 weeks before I'm back with another episode. So I'll keep you posted on the Twitter account at 59th Minute Pod. So give that a follow. Enjoy the rest of your week, and good luck in game week 14.